Hello and welcome to Clay Pigeon Kart Club on the 9th of October 2021 for the NKRA Grand Finals. It's the biggest event of the calendar year for the Formula Blues, and it will be combined with the Blue Challenge to give the numerical seedings for the next 12 months, so all the prestigious numbers are on the line. Also, to make this event different is the only mandatory tyre purchase to ensure all drivers are on tyres from even the same batch to try and keep as level a playing field as possible. The Blue Challenge results will be factored into the seedings, and Anthony Cleal would win the championship once again. Russell O'Neill heads home the chasing pack ahead of Ben Joseph and Mike Bell, with Sarita Schoen, Paul Alexander, Billy Thomas, Rob Mortimer, David Good and David Waldron making up the top 10. And finishing ahead of Kevin O'Neill and Ron Schoen, with Tom Parker, David Watson and Sylvain Vessier completing the top 15. Ahead of Phil Shears, Sam Dybel, Rich Puddle, Taylor Waldron and Robin Stones completing the top 20. The start and finishing positions of today's event will be added up, and then the results of that and the results of the Blue Challenge come together to make the numerical seeding. So every position this afternoon is important, and as such we have had 4 heats to set the grid today. Heat 1 was won by Rich Puddle, with Taylor Waldron hot on his heels ahead of Dave Watts and Anthony Cleal going up 13 positions. Stuart Gray rounding out the top 5 ahead of Sylvain Vessier, Ben Joseph, Russell O'Neill, Mike Bell and Paul Alexander in the first heat. Heat 2 was won by Anthony Cleal this time ahead of Rich Puddle and Taylor Waldron. Dave Watts in 4th ahead of Sylvain Vessier, Stuart Gray, Mike Bell, Russell O'Neill, Ben Joseph and Tom Parker finishing top 10 despite a transponder issue, so a good run for Tom Parker in his first Grand Finals. Heat 3 was won by Sylvain Vessier ahead of Anthony Cleal and Ben Joseph, with Russell O'Neill and Dave Watts rounding out the top 5 ahead of Stuart Gray, Taylor Waldron, Rich Puddle, Phil Shears and Steve Groves. And then Heat 4 would be won by Stuart Gray, just about ahead of Dave Watts, pipping Anthony Cleal, the top 3 separated by only 0.73. Taylor Waldron 4th ahead of Russell O'Neill and Rich Puddle, with Mike Bell, Sylvain Vessier, John Hartshorn with a strong run into 9th, and Nigel Vickery completing the top 10. The results put together, the grid looks like this. It's Anthony Cleal going to be lining up on pole position ahead of the outplayed Dave Watts. Taylor Waldron and Rich Puddle make up row 2 ahead of Stuart Gray and Sylvain Vessier. Russell O'Neill ahead of Ben Joseph and Mike Bell, with Paul Alexander pipping out Phil Shears on tiebreak to round out the top 10. Nigel Vickery in 12th ahead of Steve Groves and Tom Parker, with John Hartshorn, Ron Schoen, David Good, Kevin O'Neill and Rob Mortimer completing the grid. Sarita Schoen unfortunately out through illness, and Dave Waldron likewise out after a big crash in practice for Mansell Raceway. Hoping both of those get recovered well, but neither will be taken to the grid this afternoon. 12 minutes plus a lap of racing here at Clay Pigeon to come. The drivers now on their rolling lap through the chicane and up the Sturmey straight they go. You see that Tom Parker trying to get heat in his tyres. Likewise Paul Alexander. Quite a long race, so you want to be not wasting too much time at the beginning with getting your tyres up to temperature. So now Anthony Cleal and Dave Watts backing everybody back into the 2x2 formation. So Russell O'Neill signalling something to Paul Alexander, and yet there's Ben Joseph coming through to retake his position. So everybody looks all square and ready to go as now we're on board with Russell O'Neill up through pit bend. Cleal and Watts on the front row, Waldron and Puddle row 2. See who gets the best start. It's down towards the lights we go. And we are underway, and it's a good start from Cleal. He's stolen the march on Dave Watts. Taylor Waldron slides up into 3rd ahead of Rich Puddle. As into turn 1 they go. Billy's blind. That's Sylvain Vessier at the inside of Rich Puddle. Doesn't look like he's going to make it stick as they go into the chicane. Nigel Vickery dropping a wheel on the outside curb as through the chicane thunders the pack. And now down towards the hand hairpin for the first time. It's Mike Bell looking to try and get up the inside of Ben Joseph. Tom Parker running out a bit wide there. Phil Shears and Paul Alexander in the mid-pack having a look, and now we're on board with Russell O'Neill through buttons as Stuart Gray's going to hang on around the outside as up into the top bend for the first time we go. It's Anthony Cleal going to lead round to finish the first lap ahead of Dave Watts, and that looks like Taylor Waldron up in 3rd ahead of Rich Puddle. Sylvain Vessier in 5th place, rounding out in the 3rd white cart in a row. As now through the chicane and up the Sturmey straight we go once again. Looks like Waldron got a little bit of a slide on, and that's going to give Puddle an opportunity down into the hand hairpin. Puddle up the inside, and through he goes, and Vessier now trying to follow through as well against Taylor Waldron, but nothing happening there. Still Stuart Gray in 6th spot. Tom Parker further back attacking Steve Groves, likewise Kevin O'Neill and David Good. Now we're back on board with Russell O'Neill. Stuart Gray ahead of us going around pit bend, and that's Waldron running wide up ahead. And Vessier is going to pull up alongside down the start finish. And now into Billy's blind. Waldron's going to come back in front. And Vessier into the back of him, and they're both off into the wall. The pack's going to continue thundering by though as through the chicane they go, and it looks like they've dropped all the way down to the back, and sure enough, that is the case. Waldron and Vessier both out of contention for this race now, and that's going to open up a chasm there between Stuart Gray and Rich Puddle. Russell O'Neill now on the attack against the Scotsman, looking to try and get up into the now 4th position. As there's Taylor Waldron recovering, he's going to start chasing up after the pack, but lap 3 over and done with, and that looks like Rich Puddle looking to attack David Watts, but to no avail due to there being a yellow flag out. Round Billy's blind we go once again. Through the chicane, that looks like Vessier holding wide to let everybody back through as he's on a recovery. Now we're on board with Tom Parker through the chicane. Steve Groves ahead of us. Parker looking to the outside. He's going to close up against Steve Groves, and can he switch back underneath? We'll have to find out in a minute, but there's a Ben Joseph on the back of Russell O'Neill as we jump on board with Mike Bell. Stuart Gray at the front of this train, but Joseph and O'Neill battling for the number 2 seeding for the next year. So that's a very high stakes battle there. Mike Bell involved as well. Then there's Alexander, and it looks like Groves and Parker still in battle. So too Vickery and Shears. Back on board with Bell in towards the hand hairpin as Stuart Gray back up the inside against Russell O'Neill, so positions chopping and changing. Ben Joseph all over the back, likewise Mike Bell as O'Neill tries to switch back underneath in the middle of the horseshoe. Nothing happening though through buttons and around pit bend one more time as the battle for 4th starting to get distanced by the top 3. As the top 3 into Billy's bind, it's Cleal, Watts and Puddle. Then there's a gap back to Gray, O'Neill, Joseph and Bell. Then Alexander, Shears and Vickery. Seems like pretty much everybody in a battle, just the battles are starting to get a little spread out as there's Tom Parker on the back of Steve Groves. John Hartshorn holding off against David Good is up the inside, that's Nigel Vickery against Phil Shears. And Vickery still going to hang on. No, Shears pulls back in front as they go through into the horseshoe. And that's going to give Steve Groves and Tom Parker a real chance to close in. As there's Puddle looking to the inside against Dave Watts for Billy's blind. He's going to go for it. And there's contact. And Puddle over Watts, and Watts has spun. He's going to have to wait for a gap in the traffic to rejoin. He's kept his engine running though as he's going to get back on. Looks like he's going to be in around the Tom Parker and Steve Groves group. I think Rich Puddle has managed to keep it going though, is back on board with Parker now all over the back bumper of the Cosmic of Groves. Parker once again looking to the outside as Vickery ahead has run wide. Now back on board with Bell. You can see Rich Puddle has kept going. He's still ahead of Stuart Gray. So Puddle now into 2nd, Gray up to 3rd. O'Neill challenging in 4th. Is now down to start yet another lap they go. There's Paul Alexander. And you can see now Anthony Cleal has got a massive lead as he goes through the chicane. There's Puddle, Gray, O'Neill, Joseph and Bell. And Anthony Cleal looks like he might have one hand on the victory trophy already. Still plenty of time to go though. Can anyone mount a comeback? There's Dave Watts. His comeback drive's already started. He's got Tom Parker in his sights. There's Hartshorn, Good and O'Neill. Now back on board with Parker. Steve Groves ahead of us challenging Nigel Vickery as there's a shadow up the inside. And it's the O-plate of Dave Watts up the inside in pit bend as Watts passes Parker. Now through the chicane once again. Puddle, Gray with O'Neill right on his bumper, likewise Joseph and Bell. David Good looking to the inside of Billy's blind against John Hartshorn, but nothing happening there. Now on the way up the Sturmey Straight, that's Watts attacking Groves. O'Neill attacking Gray into the horseshoe, so battles all over the track as Watts has got up around the outside of Steve Groves. And he's going to make the move stick in the horseshoe. Now can Tom Parker follow through? Lots of OTKs queuing up behind Shears' Gillard right now. There's Vickery in his new Tony Kart now having to defend against the O-plate of Dave Watts. Tom Parker on the attack of Steve Groves as well. Through Billy's blind and now up to the hand hairpin. Russell O'Neill once again looking to try and get up the inside of Stuart Gray. That battle does not seem anywhere near resolved yet. Tom Parker and Steve Groves again going side by side. and then Hartshorn good, and Kevin O'Neill's back in this fight, and Taylor Waldron's starting to catch up on that 3, as there's Cleel, he's leading the race. Rich Puddle a distant second, then it's Gray, O'Neill, Bell and Joseph. And O'Neill up the inside to the chicane, and him and Gray are going to give each other so much room. Joseph and Bell have got a big run as Ben Joseph pulls ahead of Russell O'Neill. He's now challenging Stuart Gray up on the outside, and he's going to switch back underneath. So Joseph and Gray side by side into the horseshoe. Stuart Gray's going to hold off ahead, but Bell's past O'Neill, and he's going to have a look now up alongside Ben Joseph through buttons. And O'Neill's going to hold on the inside and retake the position through top bend. So Gray and O'Neill giving each other so much room has allowed Joseph and Bell back into this fight for 3rd, and has actually put Joseph up into 4th. And that is big. That's the number 2 seed on the line between Joseph, O'Neill and in fact Bell. There were 2, 3 and 4 coming into this from the Blue Challenge, and they started side by side on the grid. Who's going to come out on top in that fight? We'll have to wait and see, as it looks like Ben Joseph starting to attack Stuart Gray once again as they go up through top bend. Now onto the start-finish straight. Gray in 3rd, Joseph 4th ahead of O'Neill, and they're starting to gap Bell a little bit. But O'Neill right back onto the bumper of Ben Joseph as they're going to run through the chicane. And on now the run up towards the Sturmey Straight they go, as here's the Hartshorn group, and that's Taylor Waldron looking to the inside of Kevin O'Neill at Billy's blind. Waldron makes the pass, and Vickery now challenging on the outside of Shears, and he's going to run wide. Steve Groves is going to take advantage to get through. Tom Parker now coming up to challenge on the outside. Not happening there for Parker, but he's got the run through buttons against Nigel Vickery, the number 67. We've lost Dave Watts from that group, so I don't know what's happened to him, but back to the battle for 3rd. Gray still with Ben Joseph all over the back of him. The Scotsman against the Welshman, against the 2 Englishmen of O'Neill and Bell, as into the hand hairpin they go once again. Bell looking right up onto the bumper of O'Neill. Joseph challenging Gray on the outside. Russell O'Neill thinking about trying to send one up the inside of the hairpin. Now through buttons and up towards top bend they go. Close as that. Now on the run down the straight, O'Neill's going to tuck in for the slipstream against Ben Joseph. He's going to move to the inside, and Joseph's going to hang on round the outside, but intent shown by O'Neill. Still 4-1 though. It's like a bobsled team down the Sturmey Straight. There's Rich Puddle in 2nd, really breaking away from this group as they go through towards the hairpin. And now up towards the hand hairpin, the other side of the road. Steve Groves attacking Phil Shears. We're now back on board with Tom Parker. Parker really getting stuck in. Oh, and something's wrong with Parker. Not sure what that is, but that's not sounding right. I think that might be Parker's race over. What a shame for his first Grand Finals, but Russell O'Neill now retakes the place against Ben Joseph through the chicane. That's 4th place on the road, and Russell O'Neill moves back into position for the number 2 seed, as that's Bell at the inside of Joseph as well now. And Ben Joseph's going to switch back to take the place, but Bell really challenging against Joseph. So one move from O'Neill looked to open the door, and Bell looks to try and follow through. Shears still holding off against Groves and Vickery. Then it's Waldron having made his way up through the next group. Then there's Hartshorn, good, and that's Dave Watts attacking Kevin O'Neill. And through goes Watts. Then it's the race leader, Anthony Cleal, all in black. Rich Puddle with a strong performance in 2nd still. And then the big gap back to 3rd. Gray, O'Neill, Joseph and Bell. Now down to Billy's blind, that's Dave Watts round the outside of David Good. Kevin O'Neill looking to challenge as well, and Watts up the inside against Hartshorn. Good move from Dave Watts. There's Cleal. And Puddle, you can see 3rd place in the back of shot is Stuart Gray in the red speed. Russell O'Neill really trying to close back in. Then it's Ben Joseph with Mike Bell all over the back, just looking for a way through up the Sturmey Straight. Joseph's going to leave the door open, and Bell's going to dive down the inside. Joseph's going to try and switch back underneath once again, but looks like Bell's kept his nose in front, and he's got the inside line for the horseshoe. So Bell takes 5th spot, I believe. Now back to Shears, Groves and Vickery, still in hard-fought battle, and there's a problem for Taylor Waldron. He's dropping down the order once again, so not a good run for Taylor Waldron. Now back into Billy's Blind, the battle for 3rd and 5th go through the chicane. Russell O'Neill now looking to open up on the Sturmey Straight. He's going to go to the outside for the hand hairpin. Now he's going to try and switch back underneath Stuart Gray, but to no avail. Oh, and he's gone up the inside for the horseshoe. Russell O'Neill takes 3rd spot. Stuart Gray's going to fight back on the outside towards Buttons, but now he's going to have to slot back in as through pit bend they go. Russell O'Neill up to 3rd, Stuart Gray down to 4th, and Mike Bell gets the chance to close in. David Good and Kevin O'Neill still in battle with John Hartshorn. Then there's the race leader Anthony Cleal, and Richard Puddle's definitely getting closer, but it looks like he may run out of time. And that gap back from Puddle to O'Neill now in 3rd is still opening up. There's Shears, Groves and Vickery, close enough to throw a blanket over them. Likewise, O'Neill, Gray and Bell, through the horseshoe they go, and now round Buttons. Russell O'Neill 3rd, Stuart Gray all over the back of him. Oh, Gray's slowing down! In pit bend, Bell's gotten through against Stuart Gray, but the red speed has come to a halt, and that's David Good up the inside of John Hartshorn, taking advantage during the Taylor Waldron moving out of the way. Now Anthony Cleal tucked up right behind Kevin O'Neill. There's Paul Alexander. He's in about 6th spot, but now Steve Groves down the inside of Phil Shears. What a move from Groves. Can he hold it into the chicane? Yes, he does. And in the background, the checkered flag is waving for Anthony Cleal to take the victory here at the NKRA Grand Finals. Rich Puddle, a game drive into 2nd. Now we jump on board with number 4, Mike Bell, in 4th place, following home number 3, Russell O'Neill, in 3rd place. And then there's Ben Joseph in behind. Still we're on board with Paul Alexander. He's happy with his performance. The number 6 coming home in 6th place. And then behind, that's Gray going to cross the line. Steve Groves is going to beat Phil Shears and Nigel Vickery with a charging Dave Watts coming up just behind them. Then it's Good, Hartshorn and Kevin O'Neill, and that's going to round out our finishers. But that's not where the results will stand, as post-race Rich Puddle was given a 1-lap penalty for his collision with Dave Watts. Watts also on the receiving end of a 5-second penalty like Kevin O'Neill, but the results will be confirmed as Anthony Cleal taking the win, Russell O'Neill up into 2nd ahead of Mike Bell, with Ben Joseph 4th, and Paul Alexander rounding out the top 5 ahead of Steve Groves, Phil Shears and Nigel Vickery. Watts in 9th ahead of David Good, John Hartshorn and Kevin O'Neill, with Rich Puddle falling to 13th ahead of Stuart Gray, Taylor Waldron limping home to 15th ahead of Tom Parker, who came in early, and Sylvain Vessier in 17th. Non-starts for both Ron Schoen and Rob Mortimer, as well as Rita Schoen and David Waldron. And what that will do for the grand final standing on the day, Anthony Cleal with a clean sweep takes the win. Russell O'Neill is going to take 2nd with 9 points ahead of David Watts and Mike Bell, tied on points with Ben Joseph, 4th and 5th. Paul Alexander 6th ahead of Rich Puddle, Phil Shears and Taylor Waldron. Standings compared with the Blue Challenge standings, it's going to be Anthony Cleal taking and retaining the number 1 slot. Russell O'Neill in 2nd ahead of Mike Bell and Ben Joseph. Paul Alexander 5th ahead of David Watts and David Good, with Phil Shears, Rich Puddle and Sarita Schoen rounding out the top 10. Ahead of Kevin O'Neill with Rob Mortimer, Taylor Waldron, Sylvain Vessier, Tom Parker, Ron Schoen, David Waldron, Nigel Vickery and Steve Groves making up the top 19. Stuart Gray in 20th is going to round out our seeded numbers. And that will be all for this afternoon at Clay Pigeon Kart Club. Join us again for the 4th round of the 2 Counties Kart Club Championship. That will be from Mansell Raceway in a couple of weeks. But until then, see you. Goodbye.